right, so I'm here for the live. Welcome to my weekly live stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. with yours truly, Dr. Sarah Webb of Colorism Healing. So for today, I'm going to be answering an audience question. I really like that format of answering audience questions. So this question was sent to me by a grandparent who wants to know how to work with their grandchild in terms of loving their darker skin tone and loving being Black and what they can do as a grandparent. So I'm going to focus on that. Before we get started, be sure to introduce yourselves. Say hello. I see my folks coming up in the chat. I'm super excited about that. Hey, y'all. So I made an announcement on Facebook just a few minutes ago that I'm going to stop streaming live on Facebook, and I'm only going to stream on Instagram, and on Facebook I'm going to post the recording. So I save these to IGTV, but I also put them up on YouTube. So for any person who can help spread the word that I will no longer be simultaneously streaming on Facebook and Instagram. So Instagram, you get my undivided attention from here on out. I think it's more efficient that way. And there's something else. Let's see. There's something I want to try. So Instagram has this new feature. Well, I don't know if it's new, but this new feature called badges. And apparently we can use them, but I don't see how to turn it on. Oh well, we'll try that another time. But go ahead and say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. You know the usual spiel. We got 10 folks in here already. So let me know what city you're watching from and what the weather is like in your city. You notice I'm also in a different location. I decided to move closer to my Wi-Fi router because I think the connection looks better. It looks clearer on here. It's also a sunny spot, so that works for me. Sun where I am. Send a DM. Jessica Bergs. Is that how I use hello from the Netherlands? Welcome, Miss Petty LaBelle. Love from Pakistan. Hey, Sana. Boston, Massachusetts. Hot and humid today. Welcome. We got folks from all over. So Jessica, is that how I enable badges? Do I send a DM? Not sure. Keisha, hey Keisha, tuning in from Springfield, Illinois, and the weather is amazing, sunny. Yes, it is. Gorgeous day today. Love from Kenya. Hey Nelly Alili, welcome. Ken, love from Flower Mound, Texas. It's a little cloudy. Okay, welcome Texas in the house. Hi, I'm from steamy hot Vienna. This is like one of my favorite parts of the live streams. It's just seeing where people are from. Oh my goodness. I would love to just meet all of you in person someday. I don't know if it'll ever be feasible to meet everyone, but maybe at least some of you. I've met one of you. I met Keisha the other day in person, finally. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm not sure how long we're going to be on. But let's see. Thank you, Ken. Yeah. I just did this morning. Like I just did that because I slept with it like this, so it got a little flat, in the back and on the side. So I just pulled it, stretched it back out into like a circular shape. I like it. It's very easy and simple. Okay, so now to get into the topic, if you're just joining, I'm answering another audience question. This question was sent to me by a grandparent wanting to know how to help with their child their grandchild who does not like their skin tone, who lives in a predominantly white environment and lacks access to Black culture. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read the actual question. And I am paraphrasing a little bit, but how do you address feelings about dark skin, colorism, and racism with your grandchild who doesn't like her skin color, lives in a mostly white environment, and lacks Black culture. So in order to answer this question, I'm going to try to narrow down the scope a little bit, because as I was thinking about my answer and preparing my answer, I realized that there's a lot of nuance depending on the more specifics of the situation, right? So that is a specific situation, but there are additional specifics that might determine how you approach that situation, right? So to answer that question today, and of course, anyone in the comments who wants to share your thoughts on that same question, how would you approach that situation? Please put that in the chat as we talk today. But I'm going to assume a few things. One, that your grandchild's primary guardian is not Black. Because you're saying they're growing up in a mostly white environment. So I'm making that assumption for the sake of being specific with my strategies today, right? That might not be the case, or that's not always the case necessarily. But assuming that you have a grandchild whose primary guardian is not Black, that's how I'm going to approach this question. The other thing I'm going to establish is that for today is that you can't count on that primary guardian to assist with what you're trying to do, right? You can't count on that guardian, that non-Black guardian, to be cooperative in your efforts to help your grandchild love their skin tone, right? Based on the question, it sounds like it was mostly an effort on the part of the grandparents, right? And that they didn't really have support from the other side of the family. And then worst case scenario is that the primary caregiver in their immediate environment where the child spends most of their time is actually antagonistic or is actively anti-Black, right? I'm not going to make that assumption, but I want to acknowledge that there are situations where that's the case. So maybe I can address that later, but we're just going to assume that they're non-cooperative, right? So not that they're actively spewing racism or that they're actively trying to be colorist or trying to keep the child away from their Black family or whatever, but that they're just not doing the work that it takes to raise a Black child in America, right? Either out of obliviousness or, just ignorance about the fact that you have to do extra, right? And then the last assumption I'm going to make to help me answer this question in a more precise way is that your time with your grandchild is very limited. So they don't live with you. You're not in their lives on a daily basis, right? So you don't pick them up every day after school. You don't see them every weekend. So maybe you see them periodically, maybe a couple of months out of the year, or maybe certain holidays. So you have very limited time with the grandchild, okay? So those are the things I'm going to assume just for answering this question. Because again, sometimes the answer can be very, very vast, very, very broad. There are so many different ways to approach raising children with high self-esteem. So I want to focus in more on those specific situations. And so the first one applies no matter who you are. And that is always to look within and look within the environment that you've created, right? So when the child is with you, do an honest self-assessment or an audit of the environment that you've created for her to come into. And so this is kind of like building a boat and making sure there are no holes in it, right? So if you think about when the grandchild comes to visit you, is around you, you're creating this environment for her to be in. And so you want to do an audit of that environment that you've created for her to come into and make sure that there are no anti-Black things leaking in terms of your efforts to instill confidence and self-love, right? And what I mean by that is, for example, if you're trying to help your granddaughter love her darker skin, you're trying to help her appreciate Black culture and love Black culture, are the TV shows that she sees you watch supporting that goal, right? So you might think about what she watches, but if she is in the room and you're watching a sitcom where all the characters are white, and you're like, oh, she's not paying attention to that. She is paying attention to that, right? And so for parents, grandparents, caregivers, guardians, a lot of times we focus so much on what the child is directly engaging with, but they are just as much aware of what we're watching. They're just as much aware of how we dress, how we wear our hair. They're just as much aware of who our friends are, right? They're just as much aware of the music we listen to, the podcasts we listen to, right? And so thinking about all the things that she would observe you, like, so if she were to just like casually observe you throughout your day, how much are you celebrating Blackness? How much are you showing and expressing love for your own Black self, as well as other Black people and Black culture, right? And so I think that is where you start, right? You have to get that boat secure. You have to secure the boat and make sure there are not any leaks from that that are counterproductive to the extra work you might do. Yeah, so I wrote down here is to make your environment soaked in Blackness. And this is important because if you want to move your boat upstream, you have to paddle. You have to keep paddling. And so it's not going to be a matter of doing a few things here and there. Like, that's not going to cut it, right? Especially if you have limited time with her, especially if the majority of her time is in predominantly white spaces, then you have to saturate your environment with the love of Blackness, with Black love and the love of Black things, the love of Black people, the love of Black culture, right? And even, a lot of times, we're encouraged to take a multicultural approach to things. And I say that even that's not enough, right? So it's not enough to expose her to a variety of different races and a variety of different cultures. That's important, but in a multicultural environment, anti-Blackness thrives. Anti-Blackness thrives in multicultural environments, right? And so she's not necessarily going to learn to love Blackness in a multicultural environment, right? And so you can't be afraid to center Blackness. You can't be afraid to do that, especially in our current environment, our current society, where if you look at the hierarchy of racial classifications, right, the dichotomy of white and Black was an intentional dichotomy. Like, that dichotomy was intentionally set to further perpetuate the difference, right? The greater the difference between these people, the more entrenched or ingrained the racist beliefs would be, right? And so other racial groups, right, Asian Americans, Native Americans even, are sort of closer to the middle of that seesaw, right? And so they have greater leverage than Black people in the spectrum of race, right, in terms of the racial hierarchy. And that's something that our non-Black POCs have acknowledged more and more since 2020 with the murder of George Floyd, right? We've seen a lot more people of color acknowledging the relative privilege they have in comparison to Black people, right? And especially darker skinned Black people, right? We've also, I did a presentation just an hour ago, for light-skinned Black people in Germany wanting to unpack their privilege and wanting to leverage their position in society in support of darker skinned Black people. And so we have to be aware that if we're trying to treat a disease, right, we have to target that specific disease, right? So if we're trying to treat anti-Blackness, we have to center Blackness, and we can't be ashamed about that. We can't try to convince people that, we love all people and all races. We should accept all folks, right? Like, that's true. But when we say Black Lives Matter, there's a reason we're centering Black lives in that statement. And so you have to do the same with your granddaughter, is what I'm trying to say. You're not teaching her to hate other races of people, but because she is being conditioned to hate her own Blackness, then you have to target Blackness, right? That has to be at the center of your strategy. Let me see if there are any questions coming through. Vienna. Oh, so it said, please make it happen and come to the conference in Pakistan. Waiting for you. I'm down. Let me check my calendar. Says it does. Lots of people miss this. Let me see. I should be keeping up with the comments. Says, I love this centering blackness. My fam did this. In the long run, it really worked and offset what I got outside my home. Yeah, I am Shanda Rule. It's because of the tide that's coming against us, because of the current that's coming against us, we do have to offset it, right? By centering blackness, right? And so I think when you look at how we're inundated with anti-blackness, inundated with the belief that white is better, the only way to overcome the onslaught of that messaging is to center blackness. My mom preached loving myself as a black person, but the diverse school I went to was rooted in anti-black racism, ruined my self-esteem. Yes, Ken. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That, ideally, in theory, we could take a multicultural approach to self-love and diversity and things like that. But, as you're saying in your experience, your school was very multicultural, and anti-blackness thrives in multicultural settings. And actually, multiculturalism is one way to deny the existence of anti-blackness, right? So when people don't want to address or deal with anti-blackness, then they push or they insist on the multicultural approach, right? Well, we need to have all people at the table. We need to have all different races and people at this meeting or in this group, or why is it only about black people, because Asian people deal with things and Native Americans are dealing with things too, right? And there's a time and a place for that approach. There's a time and a place for the all hands on deck, for the all races and ethnicities coming together for specific purposes. But there is, when you're trying to instill self-esteem in a dark-skinned black girl, you got to center blackness. Okay. So a second thing that I would recommend is media exposure, right? So no surprise there. No surprise. We all know how much the media influences people's perceptions of others as well as our perceptions of ourselves, and how it creates these narratives in us. And so for the time that she is with you, look at the movies and the TV shows that are directly targeting her. So the children's movies, the children's TV shows. There are not a lot with dark-skinned girls in the leading roles of children's movies. There just aren't. But find them, right? It's just because it's difficult to find them doesn't excuse us from doing everything we can to find them. I have paid Webb's pages, blog posts with lists of books and TV shows. I will work to update that over time, right? So you can start there, and things that have been more recently published or more recently released since I've updated those blog pages. Leave a comment, let me know, send me a DM hey, I noticed this book is not on your list, or this movie is not on your list, right? Let me know things that I might be missing or not be aware of. But I do have also the index, right, which includes books and movies and plays that deal with colorism in some way. But also things like children's books. You're actually more likely to find a children's book with a dark-skinned girl than a movie with a dark-skinned girl. So I would say start with books, but look at your coloring books too, right? So coloring books, is it like the Barbie with the long hair and the thin nose, right? Or can you get a Princess and the Frog coloring book, or, a Black Panther coloring book, or something where the characters are visibly black? Because even though you can color a Barbie coloring book brown, which I used to do as a kid, there's still she still has the long straight hair, and the cover of the coloring book is still going to be the white Barbie. So look for even diverse coloring books. Songs and music. So there are lots of songs and music that talk about loving yourself. there are a few. So I use these in my university classes. So I'll include them in my list of resources on the blogs. But the Sesame Street song, some of you know it. I Love My Hair. And then they do it in Spanish and in English. And then there's also one about where all the Sesame Street characters are talking about the color of their skin and how they love my brown. And then like some of the Latinx characters are talking about their skin and their hair, right? So start in that. You can start with just that one song, just that one Sesame Street song where she's talking about I'm brown and I love being, dark brown. That's me, and I love my hair. Just learn that one song with her, sing it with her. And then also dolls and toys. So buy her all the black dolls. And we just can't avoid doing that. That's just something we have to do. Buy her all the black dolls, all the black toys. And then the key thing though, right? So what I have here that's super important is to not just give these things to her, but to enjoy them with her. So watch the movies with her, watch the TV shows with her, read the books with her, sing the songs with her, play with the dolls and the toys with her, and then talk through that experience, right? So you're watching the movie with the dark-skinned person in it and say, oh, I just love that character so much. That's my favorite character on the show. Who's your favorite character? Why do you think she's the superhero in this show? Playing with the toys. Your doll is so pretty. Doesn't she look like you? Your pretty baby doll. I bought the baby doll for you because I thought she looked cute, just like my grandbaby, right? Or, let's read this book together and talk about how the illustrations look like our family, right? There's the grandma and the grandpa and the grandchild, and they look just like our family does, right? So I think that could be the extra edge, right? So it's one thing to have these things for the child, but you can take it up a notch by actively engaging with these resources with the child and talking to them about the doll and the book and how it's a beautiful illustration. This painting is so pretty. The illustrator did such a great job. And it's cool how the grandma in this book looks just like me, or how the granddad in that movie looks just like me, and you look like that character, right? A sub point to media though, and then after I'm done with media, I'll go back to these comments because I saw some coming in, is expose her to non-children's media as well. So this might be one that some grandparents and caregivers miss, is that there's some media that's not made for children, but it's still child friendly, right? So you might gauge it based on her own interests, right? But there are dark-skinned ballerinas that she can watch on YouTube, right? We are so fortunate to have YouTube in this day and age in terms of helping to build healthy self-esteem, right? So Michaela DePrince has lots of YouTube videos out. She's a dark-skinned ballerina. If she likes dance and she likes ballerinas, show her photos of Michaela DePrince. Show her YouTube videos of Michaela DePrince. And like, oh, look at this beautiful black ballerina. And you like ballet. Here's a ballerina who looks just like you, right? Figure skaters. I don't remember the name of the really famous dark-skinned figure skater from France, I think. Show her YouTube videos of her figure skating, and like, wow, look at, this beautiful black figure skater and her outfits. Y'all know figure skating outfits are always like, just gorgeous. I think any, child would see like magic in figure skating. Like it's a magical sport to me. But even like other popular people, like Lupita Nyong'o was on a Sesame Street episode, right? Or maybe Lupita Nyong'o's doing an interview where she's talking about being a child, and you let her see that, YouTube video, or even like a clip or a photo of Lupita Nyong'o winning the Oscar, right? Or the dark-skinned Miss America who recently won, or, a Serena Williams tennis match, right? So in terms of exposing dark-skinned girls to media where they can see representation of people who look like them, it doesn't always have to be children's media. And so I think, and because the resources are limited, don't limit yourself to just children's media, but there are kid-friendly or family-friendly media as well, even if it's not specifically children's media. Okay, let's see all the comments. I want to read them. What have you all been saying? You're so on point. Thank you. Keep me in check. Let me know if I'm off point ever. But also, dark-skinned girls playing positive character or lead romantic interests are the pretty one. All of these are so rare. Absolutely. Gypsy Girl, I believe I said that right. That's equally, just as important, actually. If not, just as important, is that you want to vet the media. So you don't want to assume that like, oh, the Proud Family, right? The Proud Family is a kid's cartoon and there are dark-skinned characters in that film, in that TV show. So she can watch that. No. So this goes to watching the shows with her and watching the movies with the children, right? Because you don't want it to be a negative representation, right? So it's not just the quantity of representation, it's also the quality of representation. So yes, thank you for adding that. Ken, my mom sang Pretty Brown Eyes with me as a kid. When I was sad, my eyes weren't blue. It works. We got a testimony, y'all. We got a testimony from Ken. Yeah. And also, like, I talked about the Sesame Street song, but you can make up songs. You can write a song with her, right? Or you can write one for her. You can make the song up if you can't find one that you like. And that could be like an activity, depending on the age of the child, right? You can have them write a song or create a song. All the black dolls. Yes, Khalif Graham. All the black dolls. Just buy them all. And surround them with her. And I was thinking too, as I was talking, like writing that down in my notes, I was thinking about how if she is in a place where she's been conditioned to like hate or have disdain for blackness, she might initially reject this stuff. So I want to talk about that a little bit. She might not be open to this at first. She might actively reject this. She might say, I don't want that doll. She's like, she might say, I want the pretty dolls. Or she might say, I don't want the black dolls. So be patient in this process, right? And you don't want to force feed her, but I think take it slow, right? And surrounding her with these dolls, surrounding her with this media, she might come around to it if she rejects it at first. JV1710 says, let her watch Joy Reid. Has her own segment on MSNBC. Yeah, so Joy Reid, right? If you're watching, I think that comes on in the evenings. So like if she's like playing and that you're using that as your time to catch up on the news while she's like playing with a doll, right? Or reading a book, and you have that news story on, right? She might see it. She might not, she doesn't have to actively watch it, but just her seeing in an off chance, looking at the TV and seeing a dark-skinned black woman on the TV at the desk, leading the conversation like Joy Reid does. It makes a difference. It really does. Sarah Bestwheel, Sesame Street also has a book called We're Different, We're the Same. Okay, so Sesame Street also makes books. I did not know that. That's a good resource to use. Khalif Graham. Show them singer Normani. Okay, so there's a singer named Normani, and I've heard of Normani. I'm trying to think of what songs they made. The singer Normani. I'm trying to think of other singers. There's one called Ray Black who just made a song called Dark Skins. So that's an example of a dark skinned person, but the lyrics are also favorable for dark-skinned girls. There was, I showed my niece, I was showing my niece and my nephew sort of like a jam session with these Jamaican singers, because one of the singers had hair just like my niece. My niece was getting her hair combed and she was like crying because it hurt a little bit. And so I pulled up this YouTube video of these like black Jamaican women, like really just voices. It was so beautiful. Singing on stage and, like just having a good time. And I said, oh, look, these girls, they're singing, their voices are so pretty, they're so pretty. And look, Malaika, her hair is just like yours, right? I said, she has hair just like yours. And I showed her brother and I was like, this is so cool. Isn't that cool? Look. So I'm that auntie, right? Who's like, if I see something like that, I'm like, let me pull up a YouTube video. Let me pull up this song, right? I'm always looking for those things. But yeah, I'm going to write down Normani and, cause I know the name, I just can't put a song with it. So I'm going to go look that up. Gypsy Girl, I was watching Family Reunion and they had the woke high school girls as dark-skinned girls who are essentially bullies with big attitude. So annoying. Yeah. Yes. I have not seen Family Reunion. I'm going to write that down. Not that I'm going to actually watch it, but I just want to be aware of it and what it does. But yeah, that's this might be a little mature for the age that I'm thinking this grandchild is, but there was a really good Netflix show that people were talking about where like all the main characters were dark-skinned girls. And so I think part of the problem is that there's only like one dark-skinned girl usually. And so if she's the bully, then that's the example you get, right? But if you have a cast where like all the girls are dark-skinned, then maybe if the antagonist is dark-skinned, but also the hero is dark-skinned and the main character, the protagonist, is dark-skinned as well, it shows the diversity and the range of us. I think that's the problem with tokenism. If you only have one representation in the show, then you have that much more pressure on you to make sure it's a really good one, right? Like it has to be great. It has to be like on point because it's the only shot you get. 6 Central. Okay, so Joy Reid comes on at 6 Central, folks. Also, even if you don't have children, like support Joy Reid. Support the dark-skinned sister who has her own show. I am Shanda Rule. Yes, I only had black dolls. Black books, only black magazines were in my house. Black art, movies. Someone gave me a white doll, but it disappeared. That's funny. That's a funny story. Yeah, and I am Shonda Rule. You did not grow up hating white people or hating other races of people because you were surrounded by blackness, right? So I don't think people need to be afraid of that. People don't need to think that, well, if I just surround them with blackness, then they're going to end up being hateful towards other folks. I'm like, that's not true. It's just going to allow them to love themselves better, which then allows them to love everybody else better, right? Y'all are so cool and smart. Hello, earrings. Oh yeah, my friend Jar gave me these earrings. Shout out to them. Lucid Los, Afrobeats music videos have a lot of positive imagery of dark-skinned women. All right, Afrobeats music videos. Positive imagery of dark-skinned women. Awesome. Khalif Graham, also have black art in your home that reflects black art. Absolutely. And what I used to do, so this could be a fun exercise. I didn't write this in my notes, but as you're talking about black art, what I did when I was in high school, but you can do this activity with children of any ages, is to make collages of people that kind of look like them, right? So when I went natural and I wanted to get locks, I would cut up every Essence, Ebony, I would just cut up all the magazines with people who had locks, men and women who had locks. And I would make these collages of all the different pictures and photos of people who had locks in their hair, right? And so you can like actually do activities like that with her. Keisha says, I saw that on Family Reunion too. It's on Netflix. Oh, okay. Okay, well, all right. We got to do better but like Hollywood has to do better. Belly Bela says, my brothers are colorists and one is anti-black. I avoid engaging with them on the topic. Yeah, that's sad. I'm sorry that you have immediate family that is colorist. And that's the other thing too, in terms of with your grandchild, right? In terms of that question, that's another aspect of plugging the leaks, right? So if you have other people in your environment that they might be exposed to when they're in your company or in your care, you really, really want to like put up boundaries with those people. And only surround them with your friends and family and relatives who are also in love with blackness, right? That has to be the standard. It's too painful for me to go there. I can imagine. Yeah, it's very painful. I've talked to a lot of Black women specifically who struggle a lot with their brothers rejecting blackness and rejecting Black women in particular. So that might actually be another live stream. Okay. Ann Indo says, also the daughters are light and the boys are darker in family reunion. Oh, y'all are just like breaking it down. The analysis on this movie is on point right now. And then I have a family reunion coming up at the end of the month. So it's like, it's on topic too, right? Yeah. Who made Family Reunion? Like, who's the director and the producer of that movie? Khalif Graham, I literally get angry when I see Black people give their daughters white dolls. Yeah, it's damaging. Gypsy Girl, Family Reunion is a series on Netflix. All the desirable women girls are fair. Only the grandmother is dark. And of course, she is extra sassy and angry or no nonsense. Yeah, that's textbook colorism for Hollywood and for movies and film and TV. I met God, she's Black. Yes, hair. Yes to the hair. Lucid Lowe's, I'm so happy to see a Black man in the chat. Welcome, Khalif Graham. Hey, I hate colorism. I love y'all. Y'all are so cool. Okay, so then the other thing I wanted to say, the last strategy I'll offer for this is what you can actively send back with her to the other environment. So this is so important. Like, my other strategies were all about when she's with you, when she's in your environment. And so again, we're under the assumption, just for the sake of this live answering this question, we're under the assumption that the predominantly white environment that she lives in is uncooperative, but not antagonistic, right? So they're not going to throw out the book if it has a Black child on the cover. Okay, so we're assuming that. So I think you want to definitely send the toys and the books back with her, right? Send those to her. Let that be things she can bring with her to this predominantly white environment and sort of fill her space there, wherever she is, with affirming images of herself. But the other thing is, I want you to start, and again, I don't know the exact age of the child, but I'm going to offer this anyway. I want you to start teaching her explicitly about race and color and what it means. I know that's scary for people. And I've heard people say, well, if I talk to them about race, then they're going to be racist. Or if I talk to them about color, they're not going to understand, or they're too young to understand. But I actually think it's probably more important for her because being a Black child in a mostly white environment is so obvious to her. Trust me, she already sees it. Like, that's why the question was even posed to begin with. Is that she's experiencing, witnessing, observing racism and colorism in her daily environment all the time. And there's no one there to give her language to describe what she's experiencing. There's no one there to help explain to her what's happening and why it's painful, right? And so as the grandparent who wants to make a difference, you have to be the one to do that work. You have to be the one to explain to her what it means when she sees people of different skin tones, what it means to be Black in America, what it means to be white in America, right? And there are resources too. I have a blog post that talks about introducing colorism to children of different ages. So like really young children, middle-aged children, and then like high school, college-age children. But that's the sort of higher level stuff that you have to do, right? And so start to explain things like difference, right? It could start with the conversation about difference and what difference means. And then it could talk about a conversation about history and the history about, how Black people came to the United States versus how Europeans came to the United States. And even asking her questions, right, in these conversations. Start to ask her questions, explicit, direct questions about how does she feel being the only brown or Black person in her family or in the house or at the school or in the neighborhood, right? And really get direct and straightforward about the race and color conversation with her. I think that will be the third strategy that I offer in terms of that. Because you're sending her back, not just with the books, you're not just sending her back home with the dolls and the movies, but you also want to send her back with a frame of reference. You want to send her back with knowledge and wisdom and sort of the mental processes that it'll take for her to understand what's going on. And that will... Well, also, I just had another thought. I think that will sustain her in moments when she realizes that something is going on, and normally it would be painful or hurtful to her because she can't understand it. But then when she goes back, the same thing will happen. And she'll recognize in the moment, like, oh, this is what Granddad was talking about. Oh, okay, so when my friends don't want to sit by me at lunch, or, when the teacher puts me in the back of the classroom, this reminds me of the story that Granddad told me, or this reminds me of, those questions that Grandma was asking me, right? It'll help her start to think about her experiences differently, because as children, we don't have that cognitive frame of reference. So any bad treatment, any negative treatment we receive, we assume we're the problem. We're assuming that, I wish I was white because then my teachers would treat me better. I wish I was white because my classmates would treat me better, right? And so I think one gold nugget that you can give her is the ability to change her perspective on what's happening around her. And doing that through direct conversations about race and color and the history of the country, right? Just like you would teach her the history, the false history of Thanksgiving, right? We teach children all kinds of history that is false and wrong, right? So we might as well start teaching them actual history, right? I've been talking a lot today. So let me see. I might have to go live again because I wanted to learn how to use badges on Instagram, but I didn't do it this time. So I'm going to close this session by reading these last few comments. Remember that I do this every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Group coaching is starting in August for dark-skinned women. So if you want to join, send me a DM or email or check out my website. I do have 2 scholarships. So if you really want to do collective healing work with other dark-skinned women, but you are concerned or have financial obligations, don't worry about that, right? Get you some of this good healing come through. And also I do individual coaching, which is open to all people, whatever your race or color is. Okay. Khalif Graham, teach Black kids they are supposed to look Black. My little cousin is dark, and a mixed girl said she and some girls had nappy hair. My cuz told her we're Black, so our hair is supposed to look like this. Kudos to your cousin. See, so first of all, right, Khalif Graham, your cousin is in a good environment with you being related to her, and apparently other people in your family are not ashamed of their Blackness, right? So your cousin is really blessed and fortunate to be in a family that loves being Black and is not ashamed of that. And the fact that it's natural for you to look like that, like you were saying, this is this is what natural Black people look like, right? Like this is standard, right? Just like saying, oh, I'm human. I have a skeleton. I have a heart. I have skin. I have hair at all, right? Like that's generally what humans look like. JB 1710, trust me, it won't make them hate those races. It will make them aware and in love with herself. Don't buy that you are teaching her hate. That statement is just causing you to not help her get along. Yeah, this is true. Helping her get along, helping her separate what's happening to her from how she thinks of herself, right? Because I think what's happening with your granddaughter is that she doesn't know how to frame the negative experiences she's feeling from her identity, right? And so what we have to teach Black kids is that the way these people are treating you is wrong, and it is because they don't like you for being Black, but they're the problem, not you, right? And that's the shift in perspective that Black kids need, right? Like these people are treating me mean because I'm Black, but it's because they don't like Blackness. It's not because Blackness is wrong, right? Like it's that switch that not all children are able to make, right? I wrote a poem. One of my earlier poems was how we hate our feet designed so that shackles cannot slip off, right? So you think about shackles were designed to not fall off of your feet. And so we think, man, if my feet weren't here, if my feet were shaped differently, I could take these shackles off. And so we start blaming our feet instead of realizing, no, like my feet are not the problem. Like these shackles were specifically designed for that, right? Like the shackles are the problem. And more importantly, the person who decided to use them, the person who decided to create such shackles were the problem, right? So as Black people, we have the sort of hating our feet syndrome instead of hating the system that created the shackles in the first place. Yeah. To be honest, most of dark-skinned men need coaching to learn to love their dark skin. But that's another story, and men need to do that work for each other, not women. Ooh, Khalif Graham. I'm going to have to bring you on here for an interview, fam. Because what you said right there is 100% true. I honestly, like, I'm more than happy to, like, talk to Black men and coach Black men, maybe one-on-one. But I don't see myself doing, like, a group coaching program with Black men right now. Like, right now, that's not in my bucket or on my agenda. For various reasons that I won't go into here. But perhaps you are some of the other Black men that I've met who do actually care about colorism. They exist, not in the numbers we would like them to exist, but they're out there. We just need them to be, more vocal. But yeah, thank you for stating that. We must teach them our Blackness isn't the problem. Their anti-Blackness is the problem. 100%. So on that note, you all, take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you next Tuesday. I have another audience question I want to answer next Tuesday. So if you ever have some thought come across your mind, you're like, oh, let's talk about this. Let's discuss this. I'm still doing interviews with people too, right? I still am happy to bring people on. I have a few people who had to reschedule, so I might try to reach out to them again and see if they want to come on. But if you think you have a perspective on colorism, let me know. Send me a DM and I'll invite you on as a guest for one of these live streams, okay? But take care. Someone asked about your first poem. Oh, where can we find that poem? Kin. Yeah, so I published it in the 2018 Colorism Healing Anthology, but I think it's also on the website. If you search on colorismhealing.com, what is the name of that poem? Oh, we hate our feet, or our feet. Yeah. So if you go to colorismhealing.com and search we hate our feet or our feet, it'll probably take you to that poem. And Instagram doesn't allow you to do links. Otherwise, I would just post the link But yeah, thank you all. Gypsy Girl says black men are powerful and can almost single-handedly end colorism. I hope you do empower them with this knowledge in a group setting. All right, Gypsy Girl. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yes. I'm gonna go to the drawing board on that. But yeah. All right, folks. Take care. Love y'all so much, and we'll be back next week. Mwah. Mwah.